Good afternoon and welcome everyone to discuss global business ethics. Today we're talking about global goodness and wondering whether there could be some shared core values for all human beings on basis of which we could cooperate. And especially we're talking about the responsibility that developed nations have in promoting sustainability. And moreover, we won't be simply philosophizing, which is a great thing as such, but today we'll move from thought to action. My name is Maija-Riitta Ollila, and I have the great privilege, pleasure, and honor to welcome the chairman of the board at ST1, Mika Anttonen.
Thank you very much, and I'm also very happy to be here, not there, but anyway, in this web seminar. Of course, I guess we all of us would like to have a physical contact to each other, and having a seminar in conditions what we have before Corona, but I guess we all have learned also to do things right this way, and hopefully the message can be reached with the Teams conference as well as old-fashioned way.
We've had a rough year.
Yes.
Problems on top of problems, but we have coped so far and we will do so in the future as well. I've come to understand that you are a very modest person. No matter how hard I press, you don't want to talk about yourself, but nevertheless, I would like to ask how and in what phase in your career you grew interested in sustainability?
It's not very easy to find exact year or moment when such a kind of awareness started to rise. I guess it's more like a process when you are growing from the young teenager to the adult, and then in adult world I did roughly 10 years trading business, oil trading around the world. It's one of the most competitive businesses, and I work very long hours, and then when I finally started to have a family of my own and also children, and I started to think about this kind of ethical matters as well, and because of my business background, this oil trading, I was in privileged position to see that how the whole world really works, and what kind of impact our industry has on positive and negative, and in some point I started to realize that many things has to be done in the future differently if we would like to continue the normal, or continue is a wrong word, but if we would like to keep this planet as good place to live as it has been for our generation, and sustainability at that point, was it 2000, 2004, I guess on that range, it was not really the word what we were using internally as a language. It was more the idea that, come on, we have to find ways to produce energy in a way that it doesn't generate that many problems. We have to find better solutions, and our strategy's vision has been roughly from 2005. We would like to be a CO2 aware energy producer and seller. It's much more easy to say. It's very tough to find the ways that you can really execute this vision in a way that it's also a profitable business, because as we all know, company who doesn't make any profits does not stay long there. So that's what we have tried to do now, roughly 15, 16 years, and we have made mistakes. We have thought that this is the right thing to do. This is the but then we have found out that, okay, no, this solution does not deliver scalable solution. It's only very, very small solution. And by learning and doing, we have gone to the right direction. And on our journey, we have learned a lot, but also how can I say that when you know more about things, the pain is getting bigger. And that has happened also in this journey. So this is a huge challenge ahead of us, and especially it makes the challenge is growing because of the population is growing, and standard of living of all the human beings on the planet would like to go higher, and that is more than understandable. It's quite justifiable from people's point of view who are living in the developing countries, and that will make this challenge even bigger, because no matter how do we look at the problem, then if the population growth will continue and standard of living has to be improved in a way it has happened in the past, that will generate a huge challenge to the biodiversity and the climate change actions as well. But to answer to your question, sorry, I was a little bit long. I can't really say that exact moment, but at some point when my first children were born, so late 90s, early 2000.
So back then you already had a strong future orientation. And that seems to be the case now, because before this webinar, I asked you a question via email. I wanted to know what is your current mission, what you're doing right now. And now we'll all actually see your answer, because surprisingly, you answered with an animated video.
Carbon farming, healing the lungs of our planet. Our technological advancements and their positive impact on humankind are unquestionable, but the consequences our actions have on our planet are abysmal. Over hundreds of years, humankind has created a carbon debt of over 100 billion tons. And even if the whole world stopped emitting greenhouse gases right now, climate change would still continue. The massive scale of changes necessary to significantly slow down the clock easily leads to hopelessness. But luckily, there's an affordable way to do this: carbon farming. Here are 3 facts about this low-tech solution. 1. Planting forests is a globally recognized way, and the only feasible way, to reduce atmospheric carbon. Forests act as natural carbon sinks that capture CO2 from the atmosphere, and the results of carbon farming are measurable and verifiable. 2. In desert or semi-desert areas, carbon farming can be achieved by producing a well-functioning irrigation system combined with suitable soil improvement. Seawater that has been desalinated using solar power is used as drinking water, and then the wastewater is recycled to irrigate a plantation. Additionally, there are large areas on the planet where carbon farming can be deployed without artificial irrigation. 3. Carbon farming benefits local residents too. Large tree plantations can be combined with crop farming, leading to an increase in clean water, food production, and monetary value. This could even ease the living conditions of populations who might otherwise be forced to migrate. Climate change is a global problem, and we need to take all means to solve it simultaneously and on every corner of the Earth. We need a regulatory framework that enables cross-sectoral and global flexibility to mitigate climate change. With this in place, a company could fulfill part of its renewable energy obligation through carbon farming, with a greater impact for the environment compared to merely minding their own country's carbon emissions. Carbon farming is a great solution to start healing the lungs of our planet. Let's not waste any time.
That is a breathtaking video. And now I understand you're actually doing this in Africa, for example.
Yes, we have a project together with, actually it's in Morocco. It's coming to the end this spring. Of course, Corona has a little bit delayed certain tests, but it's with a local university in Morocco and local science community, and our partner also from Finland, Luke, is they are giving their expertise for this project. We don't have any expertise what comes to forest and things like that. We are more like financing the project, but we try to find such trees and irrigation systems and soil improvement solutions which will suit best to the areas like Morocco, because if we try to look at the land what we do have globally, we can't find such the places where the rainfall is good enough for the reforestation. We also have to have certain areas where we have to have irrigation systems, and also the people, and this is very important. We have to look at all the time society as well, and the local people. They need water, drinking water, house water for various reasons, and these things can be combined. And that is actually what we have done in Morocco from the very beginning, together with the locals. They should take the role that they are running the show. We are there to support them, but it has to be from the very beginning that they are running the show, and the terms and conditions are defined by local people. That's the starting point. Otherwise, this whole exercise does not work. But if it works in most, actually, in a way that what we most desire would like to see, then it's fantastic concept, because we can provide better living conditions for the local people, give them work, give them or we don't give them, they will do it by themselves, but we help them. And simultaneously, we will create the platform which will absorb CO2 from the atmosphere back to the soil, which is necessary. Without that, we can't never beat the climate challenge. We have so much extra carbon already in the atmosphere that job is really important to start, because right now there is no system for reforestation. It's only voluntary type of projects here and there, but it's a promille type of size compared what should be done, and therefore this is extremely important, and I'm very excited about it. And those partners of ours in Morocco, they have been very fast. They are very much favor for everything what has been done, and now we will see that when the European Union will build up such a kind of regulation that this kind of project can be run up to the big scale, where we really start to see also impact. But regulatory rules are needed to be able to justify billions and billions of investments what are needed to build up the whole thing.
The forestation program sounds great, but now you're here to solve our biggest problems, so I won't hesitate to present you one. Because according to BBC in 2019, President Bolsonaro has insisted that the Brazilian areas of the Amazon rainforest are sovereign territory. He said it was a fallacy to describe the Amazon as the heritage of humanity, and a misconception that its forests were the lungs of the world. In the video, the lungs of the world were mentioned, but how do you pursue the problems that are related to states? like Brazil. It's great that the locals see the benefits not only for the climate but for themselves. But what about tough guys like Bolsonaro?
That is very good question. I guess I don't have answer to such a kind of question. What I believe on the democracy, and I guess we all have to remember that that is something what we always have to respect. Democracy doesn't always deliver the most desirable results. We have seen that. But still, the democracy in longer run, it's the best system what we can have. Unfortunately, if we look at this individual case, Bolsonaro has been selected by Brazil democracy process, and what should we say about it? I guess we have to respect that result, but Bolsonaro is doing wrong thing. That is clear, and that's a statement. But we shouldn't, or we should say that. But how can we fight against it? Then it's or do actions against it. Then it's more challenging issue because I don't believe that we can build up the boycotts or we can do that, but does it really deliver the results what we would like to see? I'm not so sure. So one way or another we should improve the awareness of the people that how important the forests are for this planet, how important it is that we have photosynthesis much more than compared to today, and also build up the systems or platforms that these people who are living on those areas where would like to see more forest, that they are capable to make their living out of it. And that is Bolsonaro is now providing them one way to make a living, and we should be innovative enough to provide another way of make their living, because in final end they have to make their living one way or another. And Bolsonaro is now offering very quick and very damaging ways to make the living. But what we can do, we can challenge the Brazilian democracy, but what we can deliver and show them that there are other ways when the forest can stay there and you can still make your money. And one thing is this carbon market, what I have proposed first time, I think it was 7-8 years ago. The basic idea is that those companies who are creating emissions, they are paying to the carbon market, and parties or countries or associations or companies who are absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere back to the soil, they are getting money from the carbon market. And one way or another, these kind of platforms has to be created if we would like to get the whole planet to the same game.
You've definitely got great experience about global leadership in these projects. Would you like to characterize the type of leadership that you think is called for?
I think people are looking for leadership which based on the facts, which will where you show the example and you are executing real actions as well. I think people realize that this is not the easy task, but if we will build up so-called empty promises and there is much more talk and much less action, I think people, there's at least possibility that if we continue just to discuss and keeping seminar after seminar, that after some years people are getting tired. So they are not anymore, they don't care anymore. And we see that a little bit in Corona now, that people are starting to get sick of tired to listen every evening the corona from the newspapers and from the television. So we should build up the long-term roadmap which based on the science, which can be verified, can be measured, and then start to make actions little by little. And showing example, for example, Finland, our government has said that many our business leaders that we should show example. I fully agree, but I'm not that much in line with their, or maybe I agree with them also many other things, but I think showing example and being a front runner, to me it means that we have to develop the solutions which are scalable and can be used around the planet. That kind of forerunner who is making sure that Mynämäki, which is close to Turku, is CO2 neutral, or having a Helsinki CO2 neutral. They are goals what we need locally, yes, but we should keep all the time the big picture in our mind, that does this really generate such a kind of project which can be taken into use in Africa or South America or Asia, or is this just a unique thing what can be done in Turku or Mynämäki or Helsinki? And if we are just creating systems and platforms and solutions which are suitable for our conditions, and you have to have a very rich country or high standard of living to be able to execute them, then we are not really forerunners. We are just solving the problem in very small land area, which doesn't really impact to the CO2 content in atmosphere. And that is always something what everybody should remember what we try to do here. We try to take down the CO2 content in atmosphere. You can do it wherever in this planet, and it's as valuable as it is if you do the action in Africa or you do that in Turku. Doesn't really matter. The question is that where you can achieve the best results. And therefore, I think the global leadership definitely is now important thing. Luckily, we had a good election in the United States. Now we have a much better position to build up the global leadership in that respect, that we are getting most of the nations to the same boat. This has to be done together internationally. This cannot be done without having major countries involved. I think it's very important that we have everybody on board. But global leadership, showing example, build up the roadmap which based on the facts. We shouldn't set the targets for a certain year if we don't have technologies and the plan roadmap which will support that. People, they would like to see the results, and they do understand if it takes a little bit longer to develop these new technologies like power to X or some others which are necessary to be able to solve the energy problems. So people do understand that as long as they do see that we are doing right steps and going to the right direction, and globally we are also achieving the results.
Great exposition about the right kind of forerunning activities. We at the University of Turku are extremely proud of our new Faculty of Technology. And of course, they, as well as we at the Turku School of Economics, would like to think of us as forerunners. But from your point of view, what kind of expectations do you have for future engineers and for teaching and research at the Faculty of Technology?
I hope that when we are thinking about how to solve this energy challenge, that that is most important. There are other issues on the climate change as well. I'm not saying that they are not important to solve, but global energy system, if we don't find the new energy system, then I guess then this game is, we can't win the game. We can't beat the climate change challenge. So energy is the key thing. And then when I look at the engineers, what they should do, engineers in Finland, they are in very privileged position. We are in very really privileged position. We have very good basic knowledge about the energy industry overall. Reason is very simple. We have had at least we have had tough winters and the summers, and we have different weather conditions, and we have also very dark period of the year and very light period of the year. So we have developed a lot of different type of energy solutions for different purposes, and that is the good basis to develop more. But in the future, our engineers, they should look at things more globally. They should have a global approach to the energy system, and skills and awareness about the global, what globally we do need. That is the key to be a forerunner in energy sector, and also that should be our key point on education side, that we do understand the solar power, we do understand how to make solutions which can be used in Africa in different type of conditions, and make technology development on those areas. I do believe that we have a lot of chances there, and that's our obligation. That's our. I would like to see Finnish engineers forerunners in scalable energy solutions globally.
Thank you very much, Mika. We could go on and on for a couple of days on this, but I guess we might hear what the Dean of the Faculty of Technology has to say about your ideas and about the research and teaching that is taking place at the faculty. And now, everyone who has not yet written a question in the chat box will, I hope, act immediately, because after Jaakko's presentation, we'll look into the chat box. Please, Jaakko Järvi, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Maija-Riitta. So, and to Mika, to your challenge, we are definitely working on those things. So we have research on that. I'll mention a few examples in a moment about that. So indeed, we established a new faculty at the University of Turku in the beginning of the year. It's 8th faculty where we cover the fields of computing, life technologies, and materials and mechanical engineering. These last two ones are completely new programs that haven't been offered in University of Turku before. So I was asked to join this webinar to comment on the on the role of research in engineering and education in engineering as it relates to sustainable development. And obviously, speaking of research, one could take two very different angles. So one view is that engineering research is kind of the root of all evil, the source of all problems, and it is sort of accurate, of course. Thinking of climate change, it's the discoveries and inventions in materials engineering and mechanical engineering, petroleum engineering, and so on that led us to this carbon-hungry lifestyle that we have now, that is changing the composition of atmosphere. But the other view, the more positive one, is that engineering research solves problems, and I like this view a bit more, and I think it's more fruitful, and it's more accurate as well. If you think, for example, how intense and persistent, particularly in the US, the lobbying and denial of climate change has been, like the lobbying from big oil and self-serving elected leaders. And regardless of all that opposition and resistance, research and development on renewable energy sources, for instance, in solar and wind, it was making steady and fast advances all the time. And it's probably because of this progress that this front of denialists, it finally had to give up, and when they were starting to see their business case kind of crumble underneath. So my view of the role of engineering research is this positive latter one. By and large, I think engineering researchers, like all researchers, are driven by intellectual curiosity and the desire to solve problems and to do good, as we kind of all want to. And maybe this is why the research community has been ahead of the shift of official policies as it comes to climate change. And now the rest of the world is following the research community and gradually waking up to this reality that we have now, that we understand that we have the capacity to seriously mess up the environment and destroy our livelihood eventually if things go really bad. So we're all changing our behavior because of this, and so are researchers, and their focus and emphasis is changing. Research focuses now more on sustainability, just naturally, and it helps that funding agencies are following along that, and sustainability is an emphasis in research funding too. To give some concrete examples of how sustainability manifests in research in our new faculty. So I pulled up a few examples. We have a strong research group in photosynthesis that tries to harness the photosynthesis reaction. Mostly they work with algae to achieve, for instance, sort of a closed loop in food production and harvesting nutrients back from waste. There's another group strong in electrochemistry that's searching for compounds that could be used in flow batteries, could create inexpensive and massively scalable flow batteries. So that would be cheap temporary storage for solar and wind energy. We have research that's targeting new kinds of LEDs that would consume less energy and would be much more environmentally friendly to produce. Project focusing on sustainable shipbuilding, and another one educating and empowering local student teams in developing countries that are seeking solutions to sustainability problems sort of locally. And we're even connected somehow, our faculty, I don't have all the details on this, but to a carbon farming project. So University of Turku has a carbon farming project in Namibia. So we should definitely talk more afterwards about this with Mika. And from these examples, it should be clear that this is not research that is tinkering at the edges, but it's aiming at solutions that could scale to have real impact in the future. Talking about education, so in the same way as sustainability is part of many of our research projects, it has become part of our educational offering as well, even before we have been very explicit about it. So we have now started to be more explicit about it, to clarify where and how in the curricula of ours we are covering these sustainability topics. But even now, I don't think a student can avoid the message that sustainability is and should be a concern in all engineering processes and products and projects, or the message that what they learn during their studies can and should be applied to ameliorate the sustainability problems that we're facing today. So before we get back to the discussion, I just want to stress one more thing, then, that even though I said that engineering research is there to solve problems, but it's clear, as Mika already pointed out, that technological innovation alone will not get us out of the mess we are in. So we really need to change our ways in many ways, change in consumption, in business, and most of all in policy making globally, so that we change the incentives that guide human activities. Okay, thank you very much for letting me bring our faculty's view to this discussion, and I'll yield back to Maija-Riitta.
Thank you very much, Jaakko. That was very inspiring. A great view about the future. And now the chat, I guess this is for Mika. Let me see. You have expressed some critical views concerning green growth. Could you please elaborate?
Well, the green growth is very nice thing if it will happen, but before we have a proper content or roadmap behind it, I think we just try to greenwash our present way of having a growth of GDP, and I hope that we will find a way that we can have a higher GDP and it's still in balance with our environmental targets. I'm now talking more about biodiversity than climate challenge, really. But the growth, how we have understood the growth in the past, that type of growth, in my opinion, it's very difficult to achieve if we simultaneously would like to have some kind of biodiversity and meeting the climate change challenges. And this is there are a couple of reasons behind of this. The most important thing is, of course, the growth of population. It's we are talking about it, but we don't really talk about it. And when I was in the school, we have a 4 billion people on this planet. We are very close to 8 billion. And billion is a big figure. There is a nine zeros. And whatever type of consumption we multiply with a billion, it will be a lot. And at least right now, we don't have new ways to produce food and necessary things for the growing populations, which are in balance with the nature. And that's why it's very dangerous to talk about, in my opinion, it's a little bit dangerous to talk about green growth without really emphasizing that what does that mean? How do we change things compared to today? If we just say that, okay, the green growth is that we will produce more biofuels. To me, it's not the green growth. It's nothing to do with the green growth. Green growth means that we use less raw materials. We can turn the emissions down. We are not anymore missing new pieces from the nature. So biodiversity is not going down. This is the measurement what we should measure the economic growth against. And then if we find solutions for that, then I'm happy to have a green growth. But I don't see the real tools and real ways in a practice. The green growth to me is more like a vision. It's not something what we can do and deliver today. If we look at the global content, in some areas, yes, but that's not really honest way to look at it.
Thank you. I guess the next question is for both of you. What is going to make life meaningful if we need to give up many of the goods that we now have? Such a tiny little question.
I'll start, yeah. So I think, well, if something good comes out of the pandemic, maybe we've seen some of this already. So maybe consumption is not what really makes us happy. There's nature, and we you know, I think many are taking walks and spending time outdoors and so on. So and doing reading and whatnot. So definitely, I think, yeah, that's a big challenge that we should create a permanent state where we disentangle consumption and from happiness and meaning.
Yeah, I think we are. In Finland we have also people who are not having as high standard of living as we all wish, but I guess all of us who are here talking, we are very much in privileged position. And even if we start to do whatever actions to consume less, we still have in this planet over 5 billion people who hasn't started to consume. And they are living with less than €8 per day. And for them, it's very difficult to sell the story that, please listen, don't look at any more those internet advertisers or anything like that. Don't look at those kind of things where you start to improve your standard of living and you start to consume, because that will destroy the whole planet. You should start to live totally, or you shouldn't try to go into that direction. You should try to stay there where you are. That's a hell of a difficult message to say, or you can say that, but to sell that. And that's what I'm wondering. I don't have answer to that question. It's a very, very difficult thing to answer, that our consumption decisions are, okay, they are always important, but in final end, we should find a way that how we can meet those expectations what the majority of this planet, majority population of this planet will have. And how can we find such platforms which will deliver for them good enough standard of living? That is, I don't have answers to that, but that I have been thinking a lot.
Right. One last question and a short answer. There are many nationalistic tendencies around the world right now. How would you motivate people to act and think globally? I guess this is for Mika.
It's easy to find for those people also a selfish way. If they don't see that we are very one population on this planet and that is not good enough as an answer, then I can always build up very easy answers to those ones. If they just look at Africa. If you look at the population growth rate in Africa, in the next 15 years, there will be 1 billion people more in Africa. They are going to born into conditions where normal people, what we expect here as a living conditions, cannot live. It's extremely clear that those people, they don't stay there. They just start to move. And if hundreds of millions of people start to move from Africa, where do they move? Where do they go? And then this problem is really coming to our faces and to our homes. There is not 2 million people in North Africa queuing to Europe. There will be first 20 million, then 50 million, then maybe 100 million. And how do we handle that? So it's very much also selfish reason to support Africa and support developing countries' development to the right direction. And therefore, we have to find the right way to do that in a way that they are running the show in their own countries, and we respect the human rights and respect that they are having their own country, but providing technology and solutions which they can afford to take into use. That is our responsibility, and that means that our money goes to their favor. And if we can't deal with that, then we have a problem. We have to look at the face of our own. But it's also selfish approach, like I explained, and there can be very many other examples how you can describe it. That it's also very selfish to support developing countries and technology development in their areas.
Thank you. I also had a very selfish motive when I wanted to be part of this webinar and invite you. I needed something inspiring, something positive, something that would give inspiration for the future. and I feel quite elated. I feel that maybe even I will stop philosophizing for a while and find a practical avenue for promoting sustainability. This was a start for a series of webinars, and I hope in April we'll meet again and talk about Dasgupta review and biodiversity as a subject. So this webinar will be also in the form of a recording, which you will receive. And I really hope that we'll gather again to discuss these issues. My warmest heartfelt thanks to Mika Anttonen, to Jaakko Järvi, and of course to everyone who has participated. And my thanks go to Terhikki, Laura and Tarja, the background team who has made this possible. Now, I really wish that we all could enjoy this wonderful spring and look forward to the day that Mika mentioned in the beginning, to the day when we actually meet face to face and start philosophizing in the old-fashioned way for a change. Thank you so much.
Thank you.